Pillar three in the Christ pattern is community. And as we saw in Pillar two, this deep longing that we have to know ourselves, to understand who we are, who we've been created to be, is matched by a deep desire to be known by others for that deep sense of self and identity. It's paired with a deep longing to belong. And every community is built up of relationships that exist and interact to different degrees, but every relationship impacts us. And every relationship gives us feedback about who we are and that sense of belonging. And this pillar is so integral when it comes to the Christ pattern because there's an interplay in how our community shapes us and how we shape our community.
Yeah, beautiful overview of why this pillar is so a part of our transformation. Many of you might be struggling with the very community you're in. Possibly you've outgrown it or it's always capped you early. Sometimes the questions that come to our lives can't be afforded in the transparency of our own communities. And so what do you do? And you don't have to find the perfect community in order to find your life being placed. You find that pillar two is the core of who you really are, and you begin to live out of your own sense of your true identity. In other words, you're the first stepper to the kind of community that you're going to be involved in. You're not looking for somebody else to make it okay for you. You're bringing who you are into a greater transparency. Keywords in this pillar are vulnerability, uh, an understanding of how to take off the armor or a preferred self or a way that you feel you have to perform in order to belong or to be accepted in community. You're really letting the person that you're becoming find more authentic ways to bond and trust others. It's powerful to be involved in a circle of sufficiency where you don't have to be sometimes the one who carries the past or the one who's running away from an unpleasant experience, but just to be honest with where you are and let that be the grounds in which transformation begins to happen. I mean, it can almost feel irreligious sometimes just to go ahead and be who you are and know that you're loved right there. And then the community itself can be so sacred when we just take off the mask many times we're wearing and be available to one another. Way back in the beginning of our whole ancestral move to being community, when we faced danger, we were told that you would fight it, you would flee it, you would freeze. But what we found from our ancestors is that when something threatened or was at risk for them, it didn't help for them to look and say, who's the fastest? Go out there. Or who's the strongest? We're going to send you. Or, who's the smartest in our circle? Let's send the smart one out there. In fact, none of those individual strengths helped us with our deeper risk and our fears in our life. What did help, we know from our ancestors, and it's current all the way to today, is when people were most connected. That was the superhuman power of how it is that we overcame the fear and the threat. It is community that innovates what we can be to one another, and therefore what we can be about in shaping this world beyond our fears. So we want to invite you in this pillar to do the work of bringing who you truly are, the identity, into this authentic, more transparent relationship that builds community. Kathy, what can they do like in preparation as they're thinking about this pillar?
Yeah, it's interesting to hear you talk about our ancestors and what threatened them, and that they fought those threats with community. And I think of our situation today, and often our biggest threat is against community, where we live in a world that really makes true community difficult and really kind of dismisses the idea of intimacy and vulnerability. And so I think for us to prepare for this retreat together, it's just to do an inventory of who in your life are you letting your guard down with?
Hmm.
Who knows you? Who has known you in the past? Maybe right now you're in a season where real community is hard to find. But when's a time in your life where you felt truly known and deeply loved? And what was it that allowed you to let your guard down and be vulnerable in those relationships?
Beautiful questions. Yeah, get curious about this whole sense of community. We are social beings at our core, and if we want to transform our lives, we will see it reflected in the way we show up in relationships and community with one another. So we're looking forward to more of that over our weekend together.